Chapter 12:21. Xiao Chen turned around and shook his head with a smile. Now that all of you are at the Venerable Realm, why don't you take this opportunity to consolidate your cultivation? After all, there is a huge gap between the Venerable Realm and the King Realm. All of you need to get used to it first. I'm just going to take a walk nearby to see if I can get some wild game. Everyone must be hungry after working hard all day. Wow, there's wild game to eat. My husband, Xiao Chen, you're the best. I want to eat roast chicken, duck, and pigeon. Speaking of which, my stomach is really growling. Tian Sour cheered and touched his stomach. Then, his face turned gloomy. Xiao Chen, you're going alone? That's not a good idea, is it? Why don't we go with you? If there's any danger, we can take care of each other. Tang Tang asked with a frown. She was still worried that Xiao Chen would encounter those people from the Open Heaven sect again. No problem. In this venerable secret realm, there is no one who can defeat me. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Xiao Chen waved his hand. After that, his figure flashed and disappeared into the fog of the night. Everyone looked at each other. Although they were a little worried, they agreed that what Xiao Chen said was true. After all, apart from him, everyone else in the venerable secret realm was suppressed to the full completion of the King realm. However, he was not affected at all. Therefore, the others were not on the same level as him. After chatting casually for a while, everyone sat down with their legs crossed and began to consolidate their cultivation. The defensive measures of the secluded cultivation area gradually emitted a faint white light as they operated their mental cultivation methods. Xiao Chen, who was advancing in the night, did not look relaxed. Instead, he looked a little confused. Although he could easily kill an expert at the full completion of the Venerable Realm with his current strength, what puzzled him was that when he helped Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong to make a breakthrough, he did not succeed. Now, he was still at level 7 of the original infant stage. What's going on? Is it because 3 men are doing dual cultivation instead of yin and yang dual cultivation, so they are unable to obtain enough spiritual qi to upgrade? That should be it. Otherwise, there would be no other explanation. Putting away his doubts, Xiao Chen flew in a certain direction. He did not look like he was searching for food aimlessly. As it turned out, apart from finding food for everyone, Xiao Chen had another important reason for coming out this time. When Xiao Chen was breaking through, he vaguely sensed a familiar aura in the Venerable Realm. Although it was fleeting, Xiao Chen still managed to catch hold of it. Furthermore, he could sense that the aura wasn't too far away from their seclusion location. Out of curiosity, Xiao Chen decided to head over to take a look. Breaking through the thick fog surrounding him, Xiao Chen released his divine sense while moving forward. Along the way, mist pervaded the air, and the place was desolate and uninhabited. From time to time, there would be 1 or 2 shrill and horrifying cries coming from the surroundings. Even when Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense to sense it, he could not tell what kind of creature these cries came from. Xiao Chen guessed that it was just as Qiu Wanxian had said, the cries of the strange beasts in the Venerable Realm. The entire Venerable Realm was filled with strangeness. If an ordinary person heard this sound, they would probably be terrified and paralyzed on the ground. Xiao Chen did not stop even though he had such thoughts in his mind. He continued to stride forward with a clear goal in mind. As he got closer to his destination, Xiao Chen's senses became stronger. Although he did not know what was waiting in front of him, he did not hesitate at all. Intuition told Xiao Chen that the familiar feeling in front of him would not cause him any harm. After walking for a while, Xiao Chen finally saw a cluster of fire and a white light from afar. Only then did he stop cautiously. Although Xiao Chen was currently at the 7th level of the original infant stage, his cultivation had already reached the realm of returning to one's natural state. Unless the opponent was also a cultivator, and had a higher cultivation level than Xiao Chen, they would not be able to sense his presence, let alone his cultivation level. However, Xiao Chen did not let his guard down. He carefully hid behind a tree and condensed his divine sense into the shape of a cone. Then, he slowly released it towards the fire to investigate. What is going on? Why did I fail to break through to the Venerable Realm? As Xiao Chen's divine sense got closer, a young man's voice could be heard from afar. It sounded a little anxious. I'm not too sure either. Everyone has used up so many treasures and finally reached the king's full circle. There's no reason for them to fail. Could it be that we have overlooked some details? Another charming and delicate female voice was heard. Xiao Chen furrowed his brows slightly. This voice sounded a little familiar. However, he could not remember where he had heard it before. Impossible. Hong Lao San and I have observed carefully from the side several times. You all followed the rules and did not make any mistakes. How could you have failed? The anxious male voice gradually became louder. Obviously, Xiao Chen's divine sense had spread to the vicinity of that area. This is not right. I think we must have done something we shouldn't have done in the process. I see that everyone is a little tired. Why don't we stop here for today and continue to break through tomorrow morning? What do you think? Just as his divine sense reached that ball of fire, Xiao Chen finally heard a voice that made him extremely shocked, but also extremely familiar. Shen Jingxian. This kind of voice was extremely gentle and amiable even when she was scolding someone. It was a voice that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was simply the exclusive right of his eternal goddess, Shen Jingxian. Apart from her, who else could make him feel so close? How could Xiao Chen not be able to tell from the way he spoke? Xiao Chen's divine sense gradually spread out. Everywhere it reached, the faces of everyone around the fire were clearly revealed. At this time, Xiao Chen stood motionless behind the tree. He was so shocked that he could not even speak. Other than incomparable shock, there was no other way to describe his current mood. The familiar faces of Shen Jingxian, Hong Zhu, and Hong Yan appeared in Xiao Chen's mind one by one. They were sitting in a circle in a seclusion area. Although the expressions on their faces were different, some were frowning, some were calm, Xiao Chen still recognized them in an instant. There was also a woman sitting next to them. She had a curvaceous figure and exuded a mature charm. Xiao Chen also felt that she looked a little familiar. After a closer look, he found that the woman was actually Xie Fei. Chapter 1222. It was Consort Xie, the wealthy woman who had helped him earn his first pot of gold in order to find a dog. The Wang family and the Xie family had misunderstood her as his exclusive property. Wasn't she a pitiful woman who had been betrothed to Wang Xiongzhuang but was unable to have sex with him? Why had she come to the venerable secret realm? Judging from the way the women were whispering to each other, she seemed to be quite familiar with Hong Zhu and the others. Apart from the four women, there were two young men standing at the side of the seclusion area. They seemed to be helping to keep watch. One of the men stood closer to Xiao Chen. He was dressed in white, while the other was dressed in fiery red. Both of them had grave expressions on their faces. The conversation that Xiao Chen had heard earlier was most likely between the white-clothed man and Hong Zhu. Hong Zhu's voice was soft and coarse, and it was very easy to recognize. Xiao Chen was the closest to the white-clothed man, so his divine sense was the first to detect them. Why don't we try again? The white-clothed man didn't listen to Shen Jingxuan's suggestion. Clearly unwilling to give up, he continued to earnestly persuade them. Most importantly, we don't have much time left. The sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. If we don't take this opportunity to raise everyone's strength to the venerable realm, we'll have to wait for another year. We can't afford to waste time. Song Qingshu, aren't you a little too heartless? It's already so late, and everyone has been working hard for the entire day. It wasn't easy for them to reach the peak of the King realm, and they've already failed to reach the venerable realm so many times. Why do they have to try again? Can't we continue tomorrow? Hong Zhu frowned and objected in a very harsh tone. Hong Zhu was already in a very bad mood. Because she hadn't found enough women with spiritual qi to participate in the sacrificial ceremony, she had hurriedly returned from the secular world to the Hong clan. Apart from being scolded by the Hong clan's patriarch, she was also forced to rush to the venerable secret realm with a few other women to raise their cultivation. Fortunately, the location of the Hong family was very close to the pier of the venerable realm. Thus, Hongzhu and the others were able to arrive at the scene just before the entrance to the Venerable Realm was about to close, pay the spirit jades, and enter the Venerable Realm. After little Miss Xing met up with Elder Sun, they saw several figures at the transportation point before they left. It was Hongzhu's group, the last group before the entrance to the secret realm closed. In fact, Hongzhu was also very clear that since old Patriarch Hong had ordered her to break through to the Venerable Realm, he definitely intended for her to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. Naturally, she was unwilling from the bottom of her heart, but she could not resist the enraged old Master Hong. She could only obediently follow Shen Jingxian, Hong Yan, and Xia Fei into the mystic realm. Originally, Hongzhu had secretly planned to delay for a period of time. Once he had broken through to the martial Venerable Realm, he would look for an opportunity to escape and hide in the secular world. She hadn't expected Song Qingshu to keep urging her. An inexplicable anger burned in her heart, and she didn't speak as politely as before. "Big sister, don't complain. In any case, we're already here, so let's hurry up and give it another try. Who knows, we might be able to successfully break through to the Venerable Realm next time." Hong Yan didn't object and gently persuaded her. Hong Yan was obedient, and she had always been very obedient to the orders of her family. At this moment, she was also hoping that she could quickly raise her cultivation and contribute her meager strength to the family. "Hong Yan, why do I feel that you're a little biased towards Song Qingshu? Could it be that the two of you are secretly having an affair?" Hongzhu glanced at Hong Yan and suddenly chuckled. "You? What nonsense are you talking about? Song Qingshu and I are innocent, and I've already sworn to never marry in my life. Don't you know about this?" Hong Yan had always been a reserved and obedient girl, so how could she withstand Hong Yan's teasing? Her face instantly flushed red. "I don't know about that. Recently, I've noticed that the two of you are often in the same boat, and even your tones are similar. I thought that the two of you were secretly together." Hongzhu's expression didn't change, and she continued to speak with a smile, but anyone could see that she was impatient. "Hongzhu, you've misunderstood. There really is nothing between me and Hong Yan. It's just that we have the same goal." Song Qingshu's throat was dry as she tried her best to explain. "All right, enough with the pleasantries." Hongzhu interrupted Song Qingshu with a wave of her hand, and playfully shrugged. She found a place to sit down, yawned, and said, "My sister has a lot of ideas, and it's her freedom to be with whoever she wants. In any case, I can't do anything about it. I'm going to rest now, and we'll talk about cultivation tomorrow." "You?" Hong Yan stomped her feet in frustration at Hongzhu's sarcastic words. Looking at Hongzhu's lazy expression, Hong Yan knew that there was no way she could convince Hongzhu to continue cultivating today, so she simply turned her face away, pouted her lips and sulked. Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei both felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward. They wanted to step forward and be the peacemaker, but they felt that this was the Hong family's matter, and it wasn't appropriate for them to get involved. Thus, in the end, they could only look at each other and smile bitterly, and silently waited at the side. As for third young Master Hong, he was even more helpless. Song Qingshu hadn't even finished speaking when she was interrupted. Was she supposed to go up and provoke them? After all, this was a fight between women, and as a man, it wasn't appropriate for him to intervene. It was better to wait for them to slowly calm down. "Little Hongzhu, Goddess Shen, since the two of you want to break through to the martial supremacy realms so badly, why don't you let me come up with an idea?" Just as the atmosphere in the seclusion area became extremely stagnant, and everyone was silent as they prepared to rest, a voice suddenly came from the nearby forest. As soon as the voice finished, a figure slowly walked out of the fog. "Who is it?" Song Qingshu's body tensed up, and she immediately circulated her mental cultivation method. She vigilantly looked at the blurry figure in the distance, and secretly blamed herself for being too careless. She was so focused on discussing the breakthrough method with Hongzhu and the others that she even forgot to spread out her divine sense. Third young Master Hong quickly stood up as well. His body trembled, and he displayed the strength of a peak 4th level martial supremacy. His eyes were like two sharp swords that had been unsheathed as he stared at the newcomer. His entire body was slightly arched, like a ferocious tiger that was ready to attack at any time. The few absent-minded women in the seclusion area were slightly stunned, and their gazes also turned to the figure walking over from the distance. Shen Jingxian and Hong Zhu were a little puzzled. This person's voice sounded very familiar. Could it be someone they knew? Especially Shen Jingxian. She didn't know why, but at this moment, her heart suddenly started pounding. She stared unblinkingly at the figure, and her delicate fists were tightly clenched. She looked extremely nervous, but she was completely unaware of it. Chapter 12:23. Shen Jingxian only saw his face clearly when the person walked out of the fog. She was stunned. Xiao Chen. This person was actually the Xiao Chen that she had been yearning for day and night. How was this possible? Why was Xiao Chen in the Venerable Realm? Didn't Hong Zhu say that he had been captured by the people from the inner martial arts world? Could it be that the Hong family's information was wrong? Was he here to look for her? How did he know that she was here? Countless questions emerged in Shen Jingxuan's mind. She wanted to take a step forward and immediately run towards Xiao Chen, but her feet seemed to have grown roots in the ground. She could only stand there and watch as Xiao Chen walked closer and closer. The other women also found it hard to believe. Hong Zhu even subconsciously rubbed his eyes and pinched his cheeks hard, only to find that it actually hurt. It seemed that he was not dreaming. The person in front of him was indeed Xiao Chen. Boy, stop right there. Don't go near this seclusion point again, or I won't be polite. Song Qingshu stared coldly at Xiao Chen. In a flash, he blocked the seclusion point and stretched out his hand to make a gesture to stop him. For some reason, when Song Qingshu looked at the man in front of her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disgust. Hello, Goddess Shen, Little Hong Zhu, Xia Fei, Hong Yan, long time no see. Did you all miss me? Xiao Chen directly ignored Song Qingshu's warning and continued to walk towards the seclusion point unhurriedly. He even smiled and waved at the women. However, although he did not show it on the surface, Xiao Chen's heart was somewhat solemn. He could clearly feel that Song Qingshu's cultivation state indicated that he was a cultivator. Even the red-clothed third young master Hong was also a cultivator. It seemed that the inner martial arts world was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Apart from the number one sect of the demon sect, Awakening Heaven sect, there was actually such a high-level cultivator. Moreover, from the contents of their conversation, Xiao Chen could tell that they belonged to two different families, the Song family and the Hong family. It seemed that this cultivator clan was quite large. Xiao Chen, is that really you? Could it be that I've cultivated too much and am hallucinating? Shen Jingxian blinked her big eyes and stared blankly at Xiao Chen. She was so excited that her heart was like a tsunami. She murmured to herself. Of course, the real Xiao Chen is here. Xiao Chen smiled slightly and stared at Shen Jingxuan's gentle and beautiful face. He continued to say, if you don't believe me, I can also give you some examples to prove it. For example, we met a big shark when we went out to sea in Songning City. For example, you and I sat in Bay's Panamera and raced together. For example, I helped you settle the few good-for-nothings from the Shen family, and then we, as Xiao Chen spoke with great familiarity, beautiful memories of himself and Shen Jingxian emerged in his mind. His heart was in turmoil. He looked at Shen Jingxian, whom he had not seen for a whole year, and his throat was a little choked. Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, Shen Jingxuan's eyes became moist. Her motionless body, which seemed to have been immobilized, suddenly regained the ability to move. She immediately jumped out of the seclusion area and flew over. She threw herself into Xiao Chen's arms like a swallow returning to its nest. Xiao Chen hugged Shen Jingxian tightly in his arms. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He could feel Shen Jingxian trembling in his arms. Not long after, a large patch of his shirt became wet. Xiao Chen was filled with emotions as he stroked Shen Jingxuan's hair. He had imagined countless scenes of reuniting with his goddess, but he never expected to meet her unexpectedly in the Venerable Realm. Perhaps it was not an accident. If not for that trace of familiarity that made him chase after her, the two of them might have missed each other again. After crying silently for a while, Shen Jingxian finally calmed down a little. She raised her head to look at Xiao Chen, her arms still tightly hugging him. She said in a low voice, "Xiao Chen, where have you been for the past year? Why didn't you give me a call? You shouldn't have done that. Do you know that?" Xiao Chen, who was immersed in the emotions of reuniting with her, nearly laughed out loud. Goddess Shen was still the same. She loved to educate him no matter what, but she also made him feel like he was bathing in a spring breeze. Gently wiping away the tears on Shen Jingshuan's face, Xiao Chen explained helplessly, I ran into some trouble, didn't I? I tried calling you a few times after you went to cultivate with Hongzhu, but you weren't in the service area, so there was nothing I could do." Xia Fei felt a little jealous when she saw Xiao Chen and Shen Jingxian tightly hugging each other. She was also very excited to see Xiao Chen and very much wanted to immediately bury herself in Xiao Chen's arms to experience the feeling of being loved. However, the current situation clearly did not allow her to do so she could only stand there and watch silently. Hongzhu pulled Song Qingshu to the side and briefly explained Xiao Chen's identity to Song Qingshu and third young master Hong so that they would not misunderstand him further. It would not be good if they attacked him and made a mistake. However, Hong Yan, who was standing behind Xia Fei, had a look of disdain on her face. She even turned her gaze to the side and ignored the touching scene in front of her. She did not have a good impression of Xiao Chen to begin with. She had always thought that he was a shameless lecher, so she turned a deaf ear to Xiao Chen's greeting. Shen Jingxian wiped her face and smiled through her tears. Right, the sect I went to cultivate was indeed in a rather remote location in the outer martial world, so the signal on my phone wasn't very good. I couldn't receive calls from the secular world at all. It looks like I've wronged you. I'm sorry. Is there a need for apologies between us? Xiao Chen looked at Shen Jingxian, who was always so warm and amiable, with a face full of pity. Shen Jingxian looked into Xiao Chen's eyes and a sweet smile appeared on her face. She asked softly, "Why did you come here?" "Hongzhu previously told me that you were captured by people from the inner martial world. I was worried about you for a long time. It's great to see that you're fine now." In fact, Shen Jingxian had always been a rather reserved person. She usually hid her worries and would not reveal them at all. However, at this moment, when she saw Xiao Chen, whom she had been thinking about day and night, her suppressed emotions suddenly erupted. She did not care that there were other people watching from the side. She just wanted to hold Xiao Chen like this forever and talk to him quietly. It's a long story, but the situation is special now. I'll help you break through to the martial supremacy stage first. Once you're done, we can slowly talk in detail. Xiao Chen naturally understood Shen Jingshuan's impulsiveness and dependence, but he did not want to continue showing off their affection in front of everyone. Thus, he gently said to Shen Jingxian. Chapter 12:24. Alright, I'll listen to you. Although Shen Jingxian was currently overwhelmed with emotions and wanted to continue being intimate with Xiao Chen like this, she naturally listened to everything Xiao Chen said and immediately nodded obediently. Xiao Chen pulled Shen Jingshuan's hand and slowly walked towards the seclusion area. He also beckoned to Hongzhu and said, "Little Hongzhu, do you want to come with us? I've invented a method that has a 100% success rate in breaking through. I promise I won't cheat you." Before Hongzhu could speak, Song Qingshu stepped forward and said expressionlessly, "Brat, although you are Shen Jingshuan's boyfriend, the matter of breaking through to the venerable realm should still be left to us. Don't even think about blindly getting involved. Since you have already met and talked about old times, you can leave now." "Little Hongzhu, is this person's brain jammed in the door? What does it have to do with him that I'm helping my goddess Shen break through?" Xiao Chen curled his lips and said indifferently. Xiao Chen could clearly feel Song Qingshu's hostility, but he didn't want to take it too seriously. After all, Song Qingshu was a cultivator, and he didn't want to act rashly before he had a clear understanding of the strength of the Song and Hong families. "What did you say?" Although Xiao Chen had chosen to express himself in a relatively mild manner, Song Qingshu, a disciple of an influential family in the martial arts world, had never suffered such humiliation before. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. With a loud roar, he was about to rush over and kill Xiao Chen with a palm strike when he was stopped by Hongzhu. Hongzhu first took a deep look at Xiao Chen, then turned to Song Qingshu and said indifferently, "I don't think what Xiao Chen said is wrong. Shen Jingxian is his girlfriend. As long as Jingxian is willing, we have no right to interfere in their private matters. Have you forgotten that our principle is not to force others to do things they don't want to do? Big sister, how can this be considered a private matter? That lecher definitely harbors ill intentions and wants to ruin our plans." Hong Yan naturally disagreed with Xiao Chen's actions. She glared fiercely at him and protested angrily. Hongzhu frowned. She was very unhappy with Hong Yan's words. She knew why Hong Yan hated Xiao Chen, but she had never expected that Hong Yan would use it as a pretext to target Xiao Chen. Wasn't this last too brainless? You. Just as Hongzhu was about to retaliate, Shen Jingxian saw that the two of them were about to start arguing again and hurriedly spoke up to dissuade them. "You guys stop arguing, I'll tell you my opinion. After all, we've tried many times before, but we haven't been able to break through successfully. So, even if it's a desperate attempt, we still have to try. Who are you calling a dead horse?" Xiao Chen gently knocked on Shen Jingshuan's head and said, feeling annoyed and amused at the same time, "That's not what I meant, you understand." Shen Jingxian playfully stuck out her tongue at Xiao Chen, then stared at him and continued, "Moreover, big sister Hongzhu is right. Since this is a matter between me and Xiao Chen, I have the right to decide what to do. Now, I choose to trust his methods. At the same time, I hope that none of you will interfere with my decision." This. Hong Yan was dumbfounded. She was rather speechless towards Shen Jingxian. She really could not understand why a girl as intelligent and quick-witted as Shen Jingxian would listen to the words of a lecher like Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen held Shen Jingshuan's hand as he looked at Hong Yan and indifferently said, "All right, now that the matter has been resolved, we're going to start cultivating. Miss Hong Yan, I'll have to trouble you to move your precious jade feet and lend us your seclusion location for a while." Hong Yan's expression fluctuated for a while. Finally, she angrily glared at Xiao Chen, snorted angrily, and strode out of the seclusion location. Xiao Chen ignored her and turned to Xia Fei with a smile. "Xia Fei, I'll have to trouble you to move aside first. I'll be able to help Shen Jingxian complete her breakthrough very soon. Just wait for a while, you'll be able to continue your breakthrough here." The reason why he had put on two different faces was because Xiao Chen felt that Hong Yan was too annoying. This girl was like a cow, stubborn to the point of no return. Previously, after she misunderstood him, Xiao Chen tried to explain himself several times, but he failed. Now, she was even worse and began to doubt his character. Therefore, Xiao Chen felt that there was no need to be polite with her, so he directly drove her away. But Xia Fei was different. Although she was a little infatuated, Xiao Chen felt that she was a good person. Not only did she let him complete his first task as a white fox and get his first funds, but she also introduced him to many tasks when he was in dire straits. Compared to Hong Yan, she was much better. However, although she was gentle and polite on the surface, Xiao Chen still secretly kept an eye on Xia Fei. This mature and domineering woman usually looked like a rich wife. He didn't expect that she was also a cultivator. Moreover, now that Xiao Chen thought about it, when they first met, Xia Fei's cultivation should have been higher than his, but she had hidden it so well that even he couldn't detect the slightest flaw. However, something unexpected happened immediately. Not only did Xia Fei not obey and leave, but she also blushed and bit her lower lip, softly but firmly saying, "Xiao Chen, actually, I also want to become a venerable as soon as possible. Can you help me make a breakthrough together?" Senior sister Xiao Fei, you're not joking, are you?" Before Xiao Chen could react, Hongzhu was dumbfounded and hurriedly objected. "Why don't we wait for Shen Jingxian to successfully make a breakthrough, then we can try Xiao Chen's method. What do you think?" At this time, Hongzhu's heart was on the verge of collapsing. What was going on? Although he knew that Xia Fei was deeply in love with Xiao Chen, breaking through to the venerable realm was not a child's play. If anything went wrong, she could go berserk and lose her life. Xia Fei was being too casual. In truth, Hongzhu still didn't believe Xiao Chen's words about being able to help Shen Jingxian make a breakthrough in a short period of time. Although she did think that Xiao Chen was an omnipotent expert in the secular world and knew all kinds of tricks, this was still the Venerable Realm's mystic realm. The Venerable Realm was not like the secular world, where one only needed to move their fists and legs to solve problems. What was more important was opportunity and strength, and even a little bit of luck. Hee, Hongzhu, you don't need to say anything. I know what I'm doing. Xia Fei shook her head and rejected Hongzhu's suggestion. Then, she looked deeply at Xiao Chen and smiled. My view of Xiao Chen is actually the same as Shen Jingshuan's, and that is to trust him 100%. Seeing Xia Fei's gaze, Hongzhu could only sigh softly. He knew that he couldn't change her mind, so he helplessly accepted his fate and said, "This. All right, then I wish you good luck." Chapter 12:25. Hong Yan, Song Qingshu, and the others, who were standing outside the seclusion area, had ugly expressions on their faces. However, there was nothing they could do about Xia Fei. After all, this was her own will, and they had no right to interfere. They could only glare at Xiao Chen, annoyed that he had suddenly appeared and inexplicably interfered. Xiao Chen hesitated for a moment, then asked ambiguously, "That Xia Fei, this kind of breakthrough method is quite special. The two parties must be in a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, so it won't be too awkward. How about, you reconsider?" Xiao Chen had never imagined that Xia Fei would take the initiative to ask to join them in dual cultivation. Even Hongzhu hadn't agreed to his invitation just now. This dual cultivation required everyone to be naked. Xia Fei didn't have a particularly close relationship with him, so it seemed inappropriate for her to take off her clothes as soon as they met. Hee, Xiao Chen, you're too cute. In fact, I've already confessed to Jingxian in private. Now, the two of us are as harmonious as sisters. Do you still think I'm not suitable? As if she had seen through Xiao Chen's thoughts, Xia Fei giggled and winked charmingly as she spoke slowly. This was the first time Xiao Chen had been called cute, and he was speechless. He subconsciously turned to look at Shen Jingxian and found that she had actually nodded slightly with a red face, obviously agreeing with Xia Fei's words. This time, Xiao Chen was completely confused. What was going on? What had happened while he was away? A woman's world was really hard to understand. How is it? Do you believe me? Do you want your goddess Shen to personally admit this to you? Xia Fei covered her mouth and laughed. Her small cherry lips were faintly discernible between her slender fingers, extremely tempting one's imagination. Xiao Chen shook his head. Now was not the time to investigate the ins and outs. As long as Goddess Shen agreed, it was fine. As for Xia Fei's matter, he would think about it when he was free in the future. Since Jingxian doesn't object, then you can cultivate with us, but don't regret it later. Xiao Chen reluctantly agreed, but he was still worried and added another sentence. Of course I don't regret it. I was afraid that you would be too shy to accept it, Xiao Chen little white fox. Xia Fei's eyebrows curved as she used her charming and intoxicating voice to speak. In addition to her seductive voice, coupled with her seductive eyes and exquisite figure, ordinary men would not be able to resist. Even Xiao Chen could not help but swallow his saliva. Cough cough. Xiao Chen hastily used his spiritual force to control his mind. He pretended to cough twice and lightly said, "Then let's not waste time and start cultivating. You and Jingxian first sit cross-legged in the seclusion spot and don't circulate your cultivation method for the time being. Wait for me to arrange everything and tell you that it's okay." Looking at Xiao Chen pretending to be calm, Xia Fei was a little surprised at his resistance to her charm. She also felt that Xiao Chen was very nervous, but still pretending to be serious was very interesting. She wanted to tease him, but Shen Jingxian pulled her sleeves and signaled her to stop. Got it. Xia Fei pouted. She was still afraid that Shen Jingxian would mind, so she restrained her expression. The two of them sat down at the designated spot by Xiao Chen, and then they held hands and whispered something. To avoid being seen by Song Qingshu and the Hong family's third young master, Xiao Chen stood outside the seclusion spot. He first cast a camouflage spell on the two of them and the Hong family sisters, and then he laid a barrier inside the seclusion spot. After everything was arranged properly, he felt relieved and walked inside the barrier. Hong Zhu and the others only felt that the bonfire on the ground suddenly flickered, and the scene in front of them seemed to be a bit blurry. But when they looked carefully, it was no different from before. They saw Xiao Chen walk into the seclusion spot and sit opposite to Xia Fei and Shen Jingxian. Then, the three of them closed their eyes and silently circulated their cultivation methods. All of this was naturally an illusion arranged by Xiao Chen. Although Song Qingshu and the others were cultivators, their level was not as high as Xiao Chen's, so they naturally couldn't detect anything wrong. Okay, I've arranged everything. You can take off your clothes. It seems that you didn't bring any spare clothes. It's safer to take them off, lest you have no clothes to wear when you explode later. After walking into the seclusion spot, Xiao Chen instructed and took the initiative to take off his coat. As soon as he took off his coat, Xiao Chen sensed that the two women didn't seem to be moving. He turned around and found that they both had a blank look on their faces. What's wrong with you? Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and waved it in front of them in surprise. Are you stupid? I'm not joking. That. Xiao Chen, aren't you going to help us break through? Why do we still need to take off our clothes? Isn't this not very good? Shen Jingxuan's face turned slightly red, and she said a little shyly, If you really want to do that with us, at least wait until after we break through, right? Shen Jingxian thought that Xiao Chen couldn't wait to have a passionate moment with her after reuniting after such a long time, so her expression was a little unnatural. Besides, Sister Xia Fei was still there. Although they called each other sisters now, to do this kind of thing with Xiao Chen together, just imagining the scene made Shen Jingxian feel like her face was on fire. That's right, brother Xiao Chen, I didn't know that you're so impatient. Xia Fei wasn't as shy as Shen Jingxian. She winked at Xiao Chen and calmly teased him. Xiao Chen also knew that the two would definitely have this question, so he patiently explained, You're thinking too much. We're going to use the method of dual cultivation in a while, but the moment we break through to the supremacy stage, the powerful energy will burst our clothes. I'm afraid that you won't have clothes to wear, so I asked you to take them off. So that's how it is. Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei looked at each other. Shen Jingxian smiled a little embarrassedly, but Xia Fei was not embarrassed at all. She nodded with a look of understanding, and then observed the barrier he set up with great interest. She even reached out to touch it. Oh right, what is this thing you set up around us? Xia Fei asked curiously, Are you sure it won't be seen by the people outside? If there's a sound, will it be heard by others? Xiao Chen broke out in a cold sweat. Sound? What sound do you want to make? However, of course, he didn't dare to ask this, afraid that he would be accused of thinking too dirty. He quickly pointed to the barrier and continued to explain, As for this barrier, it has the effect of blocking vision. Other people can't see what's happening inside at all, so you don't have to worry about the problem of being exposed at all. The same goes for sound, people outside definitely can't hear it. Chapter 12:26. Very good. Consort Xia smiled meaningfully and asked no more questions. She took the initiative to take off her clothes, apparently very trusting of Xiao Chen. Shen Jingxian naturally didn't hesitate either. She took off her clothes with Consort Xia and placed them to the side. Alright, we'll begin dual cultivation according to the steps I've mentioned. First, put your hands. Xiao Chen directed the two girls to sit in a circle around him and then briefly explained the method of dual cultivation. The two girls were extremely intelligent and quick-witted people, so they quickly understood the essentials of dual cultivation. They followed Xiao Chen's instructions and placed their palms on the other two's, closed their eyes, and immediately began to circulate their mental cultivation method and cultivate. Following the activation of the mental cultivation method, the venerable origin power within the barrier instantly surged and filled the entire seclusion area, releasing waves of suppressive might continuously. Outside the seclusion area, Hongzhu and the others couldn't help but take a few steps back when they saw the protective array suddenly light up with a white radiance. Presumably, Xiao Chen's group had already begun cultivating. Hongzhu, who was originally tired and sleepy, should have seized the time to rest while Xiao Chen and the others were cultivating. However, she was in no mood to do so. Instead, she kept staring at the three people sitting together in the seclusion area. Her heart was in a mess as she anxiously waited for the final result. For some reason, Hongzhu felt as if there were two little people fighting in her heart at this moment. It was extremely contradictory. On one hand, she felt that Xiao Chen's method of breaking through was too simple. It looked just like an ordinary cultivation method, and there was nothing outstanding about it. What was the difference between this and her own cultivation method? How could he possibly break through? But on the other hand, Hongzhu really hoped that Xiao Chen would succeed. After all, she had thought quite highly of Xiao Chen back in the secular world and felt that this fellow was a talent that could be molded. That was why she had used her authority to give Xiao Chen a lot of help back then. Hong Yan, Song Qingshu, and Hong Laosan all wore disdainful looks on their faces. They simply did not believe that Xiao Chen would be able to help Shen Jingxian and the others break through by relying on such a cultivation method, so they could only wait to see him make a fool of himself. Only Hongzhu's heart was burning like a pot of boiling oil. About half an hour later, the light from the protective array of the seclusion site gradually dimmed. Hongzhu and the others saw Xiao Chen slowly stand up with the help of the two girls, and then walk towards them with a smile on his face. What do you think? Have you all successfully broken through to the venerable realm? Before Xiao Chen and the others could walk out of the seclusion area, Hongzhu asked in a trembling voice. She clenched her fists and felt that her palms were moist. It was obvious that they were soaked in sweat. Xiao Chen could naturally hear Hongzhu's voice, but he did not answer. Instead, he smiled faintly and calmly removed the barrier around the seclusion site, as well as the illusions that Song Qingshu and the others had seen. Hongzhu felt her vision blur for a moment, and in the next moment, Xiao Chen, Shen Jingxian, and Xia Fei were already standing outside the seclusion site. Hongzhu's heart was thumping wildly, and she thought that her vision had blurred because she was too nervous. Kid, I didn't know that you had some ability. To think that you actually succeeded. Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows slightly and said in a slightly surprised tone. As a cultivator, he could naturally sense the auras of the venerable realm coming from Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei. Song Qingshu, what did you just say? Did they succeed? Hongzhu was startled. He abruptly turned his head and impatiently asked Song Qingshu. Hong Yan also looked surprised. She had not expected that this lecher would actually have some skills and had actually helped Shen Jingxian and the others break through. Little Hongzhu, they have indeed successfully broken through to the venerable realm. It's your and Hong Yan's turn next. Song Qingshu nodded, then turned to look at Xiao Chen and indifferently asked, Actually, I'm very curious. How did you do it? Given your intelligence, it's very difficult for me to explain it to you, so you'd better not ask. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Song Qingshu, so he turned to Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei and said, The two of you have just broken through to the venerable realm, so you may not be very used to it yet. It's best for you to return to the seclusion site and consolidate your cultivation. After your breakthroughs, the pressure will not have much effect on you. The two girls nodded obediently, then returned to their original spot and sat down cross-legged. However, they did not circulate their mental cultivation techniques. Instead, they held hands and whispered to each other with sweet smiles on their faces. On one hand, they had just become venerable realm experts, so they were still a little excited. On the other hand, they were considering that Hongzhu and Hong Yan might come to dual cultivate later. If they started circulating their mental cultivation techniques, the protective formation would be activated, so it was better to wait for a while and wait for them to come in before cultivating, lest they were interrupted halfway. Kid, don't be too arrogant. Do you think that you're so great just because you can help others break through to the venerable realm? If it weren't for the fact that you still have some value, I would have crippled you long ago. Song Qingshu snorted coldly, feeling a little embarrassed. In Song Qingshu's eyes, people like Xiao Chen who did not have any strength but liked to show off were simply arrogant people who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Just because they had some tricks up their sleeves, they became arrogant. If Hongzhu had not stopped him, he would have immediately given Xiao Chen a good beating. Alright, Song Qingshu, don't be so sarcastic and say less. Hongzhu glared at Song Qingshu, then ran over to Xiao Chen and grabbed his hand. He smiled as he swayed back and forth. Little brother Xiao Chen, don't pay attention to Song Qingshu, that silly goose. He's just a block of wood, and he doesn't know how to flirt at all. Hurry up and help me break through to the venerable realm. I can't wait any longer. Oh, alright. For your sake, I won't bicker with that idiot surnamed Song. Xiao Chen flashed a victorious smile. He nonchalantly glanced at Song Qingshu, then turned around and left with Hongzhu. Song Qingshu was so angry that his nose became crooked after being exposed by Hongzhu on the spot. He wanted to mock Xiao Chen, but he was afraid that Xiao Chen would really not help Hongzhu break through in a fit of anger. If that happened, this little girl would definitely blame it on him, so he simply turned his face away and pretended not to hear anything. Only his heaving chest showed how suffocated he was. Hong Lao-san was originally on Song Qingshu's side, but after seeing that Xiao Chen had successfully helped Hongzhu break through to the venerable realm, he became a little uncertain. After all, he did not have any grudges against Xiao Chen, so he did not have any preconceived animosity towards him. Seeing that they were arguing, Hong Lao-san, who was not good with words to begin with, did not know which side to help. He could only secretly stand a little further away and pretend to be enjoying the scenery. However, Hong Lao-san inadvertently saw that Hong Yen was standing alone at the side. Her expression was constantly changing, as if she was having an intense internal struggle. Xiao Chen had just taken a few steps with Hongzhu when he suddenly thought of something. He stopped and asked, "Oh right, isn't your little sister going to break through as well? Why didn't she come with us?" Chapter 12:27. My little sister? You mean Hong Yen? Hongzhu pursed his lips and deliberately raised his voice. Don't even mention her, she's very virtuous and virtuous. She might not even like you, you lecher, you scoundrel. Besides, she has that little lover of hers, Song Qingshu, accompanying her, so why would she care about you? She's probably already thrown the matter of breaking through to the highest heavens. After saying that, Hongzhu turned his head and gave Hong Yen a provocative look, only to find that she was so angry that her face had turned purple. She was staring at him hatefully, but she couldn't say anything. Oh, you're right. Xiao Chen shrugged and didn't insist on inviting Hong Yen to cultivate with him. He suddenly thought that since dual cultivation required them to take off their clothes, it really wasn't very suitable to bring Hong Yen along, because he and Shen Jingxian had already met each other openly, and Xia Fei seemed to have a good impression of him. Since Jingxian wasn't against it, there wouldn't be any misgivings about dual cultivation. As for little Hongzhu, this little girl seemed to be very indifferent to the feelings between men and women, so it wouldn't be so awkward during dual cultivation. But Hong Yen was different. He had heard from her that she had never married since she was young, so it seemed that she was indeed a rather virtuous little girl. If he asked her to cultivate with him, wouldn't she think that he was acting like a hooligan and scolded him harshly? Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? Back then, when Xiao Chen had only mentioned the matter of reading books, she hadn't been willing to do so. Although it wasn't impossible to insist on dual cultivation, everyone had their own aspirations and couldn't be forced. Xiao Chen felt that it was better not to take the initiative to find trouble with her. Wait. Seeing that Xiao Chen and Hongzhu were walking further and further away, Hong Yan's angry and aggrieved expression gradually disappeared. She clenched her teeth and, as if she had made an important decision, suddenly shouted and chased after them. Hong Lao-san, who was standing next to her, jumped in fright. Looking at Hong Yan's back, he suddenly came to a realization. So this girl was thinking about this just now. Hong Yen stopped in front of the two and raised her head to look at the surprised Xiao Chen and said, I've decided. I want to break through to the venerable realm with you. Xiao Chen, please take me with you. Her tone was hesitant at first, but as she spoke, her expression became more and more resolute. It seemed that she had already made up her mind. Well. Xiao Chen rubbed his nose anxiously. He really didn't expect that Hong Yen would take the initiative to ask him for dual cultivation. What should he do? Hong Yen would definitely not be willing to take off her clothes in front of him. The key was that it was not convenient for him to tell her the cultivation method. Otherwise, wouldn't the misunderstanding be even more serious? Yo, Hong Yen, weren't you scolding Xiao Chen a while ago? Are you actually willing to cultivate with the person you hate the most in order to become a venerable one? It seems like you've finally become enlightened today. Hong Zhu rolled his eyes and mocked in a lukewarm voice. Elder sister, don't say such sarcastic words to provoke me. If it wasn't for the future of the Hong family, I would rather die than cultivate with Xiao Chen. Hong Yan's expression was solemn as she vowed solemnly. In Hong Yan's opinion, the orders of the family would always come first. Even if she were to cultivate with the person she hated the most, it would only last for an hour. She would just treat it as enduring for an hour. After that, they would have nothing to do with each other. Xiao Chen couldn't help but curse inwardly. I'm the one who's going to cultivate with you now, eldest Mississippi. Is it really okay for you to put on such a righteous and stern expression? Aren't you afraid that I'll reject you? TSK, Hong Yen, oh Hong Yen, you're so great that I'm almost moved to tears by you. You might as well go and participate in the Touching the Hong family's top 10 people. You'll definitely get first place. Hong Zhu clasped his hands together as if he was worshipping a saint. However, his expression and eyes were filled with disdain. You. Hong Yen was so angry that her face alternated between red and white. She opened her mouth but didn't know how to respond. She also knew that quarreling was her weakness and that she couldn't be compared to Hong Zhu at all. Thus, she could only turn her head away and silently sulk. All right. If you two sisters have any grudges, you can slowly quarrel when you get home. Don't quarrel here and waste everyone's time. Xiao Chen helplessly shook his head. Soon after, he solemnly warned Hong Yen, I'll only warn you once. My method of breaking through is rather special. I hope that you'll be mentally prepared. Don't give up halfway and blame me later. TCH, isn't it all because of you? Before Hong Yen could speak, Hong Zhu muttered in a low voice. What did you say? Xiao Chen was standing right next to Hong Zhu, so he naturally heard what Hong Yen had said. However, before he could ask, Hong Yen immediately nodded and resolutely replied, Don't worry, I've already prepared myself. No matter how much pain I have to endure, I can handle it. I absolutely won't regret it. In fact, the naive Hong Yen didn't notice the hidden meaning behind Xiao Chen's words. She thought that Xiao Chen was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear the pressure and deliberately gave her such a warning, so she was a little dissatisfied. This kid is looking down on me too much. Isn't it just a short period of suffering? Does he really think that I'm a flower in a greenhouse who hasn't suffered before? And he didn't even tell Hong Zhu about it, but me. He's really looking down on me. Naturally, Xiao Chen didn't know what Hong Yen was thinking. Seeing that both parties had no objections, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he led the two women to the center of the seclusion area and arranged for them to sit next to Xinjingxian and Xiafei. Then, he used a concealment technique to confuse Song Qingshu and third young Master Hong, and casually set up a barrier. The area of the seclusion area was quite large. Initially, Xiao Chen wanted to bring Hong Zhu and Xiafei to another corner to cultivate so that Xinjingxian and Xiafei could consolidate their cultivation alone. However, he also considered that the seclusion area would emit a pressure when he was about to break through to the martial honor realm. Moreover, Xinjingxian and Xiafei were consolidating their cultivation, so it wouldn't be good if they were affected. Thus, in the end, he decided to just sit together. If they encountered any trouble, he could solve it together. Huh? What's this? Hongzhu looked at the barrier that suddenly appeared in surprise and asked with a puzzled expression, Xiao Chen, I was watching you guys cultivating outside the seclusion area just now, but I don't think you guys used this thing to block it. Why is it blocking Hong Yan and I when it's our turn to cultivate? Don't tell me you're plotting something. Hong Yan was also very shocked. She reached out to touch the barrier beside her and found that it was very cold to the touch. Furthermore, it felt quite sturdy, and probably not even an ordinary person could break it. She had the same question as Hongzhu, and since Hong Yan didn't have a good impression of Xiao Chen to begin with, she looked warily at Xiao Chen and waited for him to give her an explanation. Chapter 12:28. Oh, it's like this. Actually, I had also used this barrier just now, but I used a little trick in advance so that you couldn't see what was going on inside, so you could only see what I showed you. Xiao Chen took off his coat and explained, as for this barrier, it's to prevent you from exposing yourselves. It's much easier this way, as I can't control so many people at the same time. I still don't quite understand. Why can't we let others watch us cultivate? Are you going to use some trick? Hongzhu looked at Xiao Chen in surprise and asked the question in her mind, also, what is your current strength? How did you manage to create such a powerful thing? Hongzhu felt that Xiao Chen was becoming more and more unfathomable. He could actually control venerable experts like Song Qingshu and Hong San so easily. Wasn't this a little too terrifying? Was this still the young and inexperienced boy she knew back then? Junior sister Hongzhu, didn't I tell you before? Xiao Chen is a very powerful special ability user. Not only can he control other people's minds, he can also easily make them lose their footing. Doing these things is like playing a game to him. As for the function of this barrier. At this point, Xia Fei deliberately paused to keep Hongzhu and Hong Yan in suspense, all so that she could see Hongzhu and Hong Yan's reactions. Although Hongzhu and Hong Yan were in conflict with each other, their reactions were particularly identical at this moment. Both of their mouths were slightly agape with looks of disbelief on their faces. On one hand, they felt that what Xia Fei had said was a fantasy story, but on the other hand, the barrier beside them was telling them that it was indeed true. Xia Fei looked at the astonished expressions on the two girls' faces with satisfaction, then smiled faintly and continued, in fact, it's very simple. Xiao Chen wants to help us break through to the venerable realm, and the method he's using is male and female dual cultivation. Dual cultivation. Hong Yan and Hongzhu exclaimed in unison. Hongzhu's voice was slightly trembling, but Hong Yan's face immediately turned pale, and not a single trace of blood could be seen on her face. Yes, dual cultivation. Xia Fei nodded and said slowly, in other words, he uses the method of balancing yin and yang to speed up the process of breaking through to the martial honor realm. He makes use of Xiao Chen's superb strength to help us resist the pressure during the breakthrough and successfully advance. Alright, I've explained everything. I'm sure you know what to do next, right? Hong Yan's legs went soft, and she almost stumbled and fell to the ground. Although she didn't like to talk about the matters between men and women, she had read that taboo novel. Dual cultivation? Didn't the so-called dual cultivation mean that a man and a woman had to do that kind of thing? Sister Xiaofei, you said that on purpose, didn't you? Hong Yan still had some hope in her heart. She asked carefully, actually, you didn't rely on dual cultivation to break through just now. You used other methods, right? Hee, what do you think? Xia Fei did not answer directly. Instead, she stretched out her hand and flipped the hair on her temples. She posed in a charming posture and asked in a lazy voice. Hong Yan's mouth was half open. Her mind felt like it was going to explode. She had no idea what to do. Am I going to lose the innocence that I've guarded for so many years? But if I don't participate, I won't be able to break through. If I don't break through, I won't be able to help my family participate in the sacrificial ceremony and open the door to the cultivation world. But for the future of my family, am I going to make such a huge sacrifice? In the midst of her chaotic thoughts, the scene before the three of them entered seclusion flashed across Hong Yan's mind. At that time, Xiao Chen had warned her that the method of breaking through was rather special so that she could be mentally prepared. She never thought that this was what he meant. Heavens! Xiao Chen, you damned lecher! You scoundrel! Why didn't you say so earlier? If he had clearly said that only a man and a woman could successfully break through to the martial honor realm through dual cultivation, I would rather die than come here. What should I do now? Could it be that he had to refuse again? Hong Yan's mind was in a whirl. She couldn't help but turn her gaze to Hong Zhu, wanting to see what her big sister was going to do. Hong Zhu and Hong Yan were also thinking the same thing. It turned out that the so-called special cultivation method was a man and a woman performing the ritual of dual cultivation. No wonder Xiao Chen had started taking off his outer clothes right after he finished setting up the barrier. Xiao Chen, you were as pure and innocent as a little fresh meat when you were in the secular world. I didn't think that you would still be interested in us sisters. Although Hong Zhu was a little nervous, he still teased Xiao Chen out of habit. Then why didn't you make a move at the pharmacy? It's just dual cultivation. How did it become me being interested in you too? Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly. This Hong Zhu was still the same, always teasing him whenever he saw him. It was like this in the secular world, and it was still the same in the martial honor realm. If you weren't interested, why would you want to dual cultivate with us? Hong Zhu curled his lips, twirling a strand of hair in his hand as he said sourly, It's not that I want to criticize you, but if you want to take advantage of us, I'll let you take advantage of us, but you're actually so greedy that you want to take both of us sisters? Xiao Chen was a little dumbfounded. Since when did I want to take them? Weren't you two the ones who came up to me? When did I? Xiao Chen was about to protest when Hong Yan suddenly shouted angrily, Big sister. Why are you so surprised? You almost scared me out of my wits. Hong Zhu rolled his eyes at Hong Yan and said snappily. Big sister, can you be a little more serious? Hong Yan stamped her feet and glared at Xiao Chen with shame and anger, gnashing her teeth and saying, I really shouldn't have asked you to sympathize with him. I didn't expect him to be such a bad person, falling in love with every woman he sees. I shouldn't have sold the herbs to him. Forget it. If I hadn't met Xiao Chen back then, would he have helped us break through today? Stop being so regretful and think about whether or not you want to dual cultivate with us. Hong Zhu felt a little helpless towards his little sister. What kind of situation was this? Why was she still thinking about the past? Hong Yan's face alternated between green and white. She was supposed to sacrifice her body for the sake of breaking through, and it was even more so for the hateful Xiao Chen. How could that be possible? But if she refused, she might not be able to help the clan anymore. Even though Hong Zhu looked like he didn't care on the surface and even teased Xiao Chen a little, he still felt a little regretful in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he would have asked Xiao Chen about the method to help him break through first. Now, he had fallen into a dilemma. He couldn't just leave without becoming a venerable, right? How was he going to explain this to Song Qingshu? After all, Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei had successfully broken through, so why couldn't he and Hong Yan do the same? Chapter 1229. Hong Zhu was worried. If they really left the way they came in, Song Qingshu might really do something irrational in a fit of rage. He was already a little disgusted with Xiao Chen to begin with, so he was even less likely to let them off so easily. Turning to look at Xia Fei and Shen Jingxian, Hong Zhu saw that both of them had a matter-of-fact expression on their faces. It seemed that the two of them had only broken through after doing it with Xiao Chen. Thinking about it, these two women were no longer virgins, so they must have been together with Xiao Chen in the past, so there shouldn't be any problems with dual cultivation now. But he and Hong Yan were both virgins. How could they, virgins? This method seems to be a little problematic. Hong Zhu suddenly thought of an important matter and said with a frown, This method seems a little problematic. What's the problem? Junior sister Hong Zhu, I think it's normal that Hong Yan is unwilling, but why can't you cast aside your worldly views? Xia Fei looked at Hong Zhu in surprise. Wasn't it just taking off her clothes? It was quite easy just now, so why did it seem like it was a matter of life and death in the blink of an eye? Hong Zhu bit his lower lip and frowned as he voiced his doubts. Forgive me for being presumptuous, senior sister Xiao Fei, but you and Shen Jingxian have already done it with Xiao Chen, so there shouldn't be any problems with this dual cultivation method. But I am still virgins, so if I do it, it might affect the spiritual energy in my body. That's right. Hong Yan's body trembled as if she had suddenly seen the light of dawn. Summoning up her courage, she hurriedly added, the amount of spiritual energy is very important, and the clan has repeatedly warned us not to reveal it, so, ha 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 ha. After hearing Hong Zhu's words, Xia Fei was stunned for a while. It was only when Hong Yan added that she suddenly burst into a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells. She laughed while clutching her stomach, her entire body almost bending to the ground. Xiao Chen raised his head and looked at the sky. He was speechless. What were these two girls thinking? Who said that dual cultivation meant doing bad things? Just a moment ago, he had been wondering why Hong Zhu also had a look of resistance on his face, but now, he understood the ins and outs of the situation. Ouch. I'm dying of laughter. My stomach hurts. Xia Fei laughed for a long time and almost cried. She patted Shen Jingxian's shoulder and asked her to explain. Shen Jingxian helplessly shook her head. She looked at Hong Zhu and Hong Yan, who were both stunned and confused, and gently explained, "You've misunderstood. Imperial concubine Xia didn't make it clear just now. When she said dual cultivation, you don't need to hurt your bodies. All you need to do is take off your clothes, put your palms against each other's, and circulate your mental cultivation technique and cultivate normally. Haven't you seen the legendary Condor heroes? Oh, so that's how it is." Hong Zhu finally understood why Imperial concubine Xia was smiling and couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Knowing that she didn't need to offer up her chastity, she secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but there was also a little disappointment in her heart. Sigh, it would be better to really prove my innocence this time. This way, I won't have to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. In the end, he didn't expect that he was thinking too much. Actually, you don't need to take off your clothes. Xiao Chen suddenly spoke and added, however, when you make a breakthrough, the powerful impact will shatter all your clothes. After all, dual cultivation between a man and a woman is different from ordinary cultivation, and it's also because of this that you can quickly break through to the venerable realm. If you bring a change of clothes, you can ask Imperial concubine Xia to help you carry them, and you can change into a new one if your clothes are torn. Hong Zhu and Hong Yan looked at each other. In order to catch up with the opening of the venerable realm, Hong Zhu had rushed from the secular world to the inner martial world, and then from the Hong clan to the venerable realm in a hurry. He didn't even have time to pack his luggage, so where would he get a change of clothes? Hong Yan naturally didn't bring any clothes, and now she was even more conflicted. This lecher, Xiao Chen, couldn't have made such a request just to see their naked bodies, right? Seeing the awkward expressions on the two women's faces, and that they didn't immediately respond, Xiao Chen wasn't in a hurry. He indifferently said, "Think about it again. If you think it through and think that it's really unacceptable, then go out like this. If Song Qingshu and the others ask, just say that you failed to break through. It's not a big deal." In any case, Xiao Chen wasn't really interested in the two women's bodies. If they were shy and unwilling, Xiao Chen wouldn't mind. After all, he wasn't the one who was going to break through to the venerable realm. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Hong Yan was slightly taken aback, and looked at him in disbelief. Logically speaking, a pervert like Xiao Chen should really want to see her body. Why did he suddenly change his mind? Does this guy have some other scheme up his sleeve? Is he trying to advance by taking a step back? There's no need to think about it. I agree to this dual cultivation method. Just as Hong Yan's mind was filled with all kinds of fantasies, Hong Zhu suddenly agreed. She even cast a seductive glance at Xiao Chen and said with a smile, "I was accidentally possessed by my younger sister's soul just now. Actually, Xiao Chen, if you still want to take a step further, I can also consider it. Cough cough, there's no need. You just need to take off your clothes and sit cross-legged. Xiao Chen inwardly shook his head. This girl is really too much. She knows that she doesn't need to show her innocence and she's already starting to tease me again. However, from another perspective, Xiao Chen quite admired Hongzhu. This showed that she was only teasing him like this because she cultivated seduction techniques. Her heart was actually very pure and conservative, and she wouldn't mess around with just any man. Boring. Hongzhu didn't continue and even joked, "Your two girlfriends are here, so I'd better not seduce you. Otherwise, they'll skin me alive later. Let's begin." After saying that, Hongzhu very nimbly took off her clothes. Although her face was red, she still calmly stood in front of everyone. "Big sister. What are you doing? Hurry up and put your clothes back on." Hong Yan didn't expect Hongzhu to suddenly do this and was caught off guard. She was greatly startled and hastily picked up her clothes from the ground and hurriedly covered several important parts of her body with them. "What's the big deal? I'm just taking off my clothes." Hongzhu resolutely waved her hand and gently pushed Hong Yan away. He then indifferently said, "Hong Yan, if you really don't want to dual cultivate, then you can leave. I've longed for the strength of a venerable for a very long time." After saying that, Hongzhu took off her clothes and threw them to the side. He took a deep breath and said, "Xiao Chen, let's hurry up and begin. Don't waste any more time." Chapter 12:30. The reason why Hongzhu had made up her mind to do this was because she desperately wanted to become a supremacy. There was not a day that went by that she did not wish to break free from the Hong family's control, escape to the secular world, and live the kind of free life that she loved. In order to realize her wish, what was the big deal about taking off a few pieces of clothing? Moreover, although Hongzhu did not really like Xiao Chen, she did not dislike him either. She could still keep her chastity, and all she needed to do was take off her clothes in front of him. Hongzhu naturally would not feel any resistance. If it were any other man, Hongzhu would not even consider dual cultivation, but Xiao Chen was an exception. He was the only man that she could relax her guard against, and she did not have to worry that he would try anything funny. Besides, Hongzhu really did not want to go out just like this. If she told Song Qingshu that she had failed to break through, he would definitely cause trouble for Xiao Chen. She did not want to make Xiao Chen take the blame for her own reasons. However, to Hongzhu's surprise, Xiao Chen did not stare at her body. Instead, he turned his head and calmly said, "Hong Yan, I have already opened a small door in the barrier behind you. You can go out from there. Otherwise, if you stay here, you will hinder our dual cultivation." "I won't go out." To everyone's surprise, Hong Yan shook her head in an extremely determined manner. Biting her lower lip, she pulled Hongzhu to her side and pleaded, "Big sister, Xiao Chen definitely has other ways to help us break through. If he is not willing, then we should at least go out together. You are my blood sister, how can I let you stay here alone? What if Xiao Chen? Xiao Chen, close that little door." Before Hong Yan could finish, Hongzhu had already pulled her hand away and shouted impatiently, "Xiao Chen, close that little door." Okay. Xiao Chen was stunned for a moment. He raised his hand slightly, and the entire barrier became seamless again. "Big sis, what are you doing?" Before Hong Yan could react, Hongzhu had already reached out and started unbuttoning her clothes. While doing so, he coldly said, "Since you don't want to go out, then don't waste your breath. Stay here and accompany me and Xiao Chen in dual cultivation. What are you wasting your breath for? I don't have time to listen to you." Hong Yan was completely dumbfounded. It was only when Hongzhu took off her jacket that she came to her senses. She jumped 3 feet high and screamed, "Ah! Sister, how could you do this? Quickly stop. Ha, little sister Hong Yan, don't be so stubborn." At this time, Xia Fei also stood up and came over. She said with a smile, "Where can you find a good man like Xiao Chen? In any case, since it has come to this, you might as well become his wife with us." In the future, the four of us can even play mahjong together. As she rambled on, Xia Fei stretched out one hand and hugged Hong Yan's legs while skillfully unbuttoning her pants with her other hand. Ah! Big sis Xiao Fei, how could you do this? Hong Yan was both angry and anxious. She was not as strong as Xia Fei, so she could not break free no matter how hard she tried. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed. Xia Fei ignored her and continued to help Hong Zhu take off Hong Yan's clothes. Hong Yan could only watch helplessly as the clothes and pants on her body were gradually taken off. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and burst into tears. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain. Xiao Chen, don't you think Xia Fei and Hong Zhu have gone a little too far? This is not right. How can we force others? You should hurry up and persuade them. Shen Jingxian frowned and said disapprovingly. Although Shen Jingxian did not particularly care about how many girlfriends Xiao Chen had, the premise was that one must sincerely like Xiao Chen. Xia Fei's use of such a forceful method was really too much. Little Hong Zhu, Xia Fei, since Hong Yan is not willing. Seeing Hong Yan crying like that, Xiao Chen also felt a little sorry for her. He nodded and was about to dissuade her, but before he could finish his words, Hong Yan's clothes had all been taken off, and Hong Zhu and Xia Fei had even taken them far away, making it impossible for them to get back. Woo woo. Big sis, Xia Fei, why are you doing this? You are all bullying me. Hong Yan squatted on the ground and cried in a very aggrieved manner. She even tried to cover several important parts of her body with her hands. Because she had been sobbing all this time, her body was still trembling non-stop, which made her look pitiful and tempting. Although it was only a few seconds, Xiao Chen still accidentally saw some things that he should not have seen. He hurriedly looked away, closed his eyes, and said with some guilt, Hong Yan, don't blame your big sister and Xia Fei. It's all my fault. I didn't explain the situation clearly in advance, which led to this embarrassing situation. But don't worry, I will take responsibility for you. Woo woo. I don't want you to take responsibility for me. Hearing Xiao Chen's apology, Hong Yan cried even louder. It's all because of you that I ended up like this. You lecher, pervert, scoundrel, you're just crying like a cat crying like a mouse, you're just pretending to be compassionate. The more Hong Yan spoke, the angrier she became. She could not help but raise her head and glare fiercely at Xiao Chen. But when she glared at him, she was surprised to find that Xiao Chen had his eyes closed all this time. He was not looking at her lecherously as she had expected. Even so, Hong Yan's hatred towards Xiao Chen did not diminish in the slightest. If this scoundrel had not appeared at the pharmacy, her relationship with Hong Zhu would not have been so stiff. If this scoundrel had not suddenly offered to help them break through to the martial venerable realm, she would not have to suffer such humiliation here. Even if you close your eyes now, as if to say that you don't have any improper thoughts about me, I still won't believe you. Hong Yan thought hatefully as tears fell from her eyes. Xiao Chen, ignore her. She's just being unreasonable and asking for a beating. Hong Zhu changed his charming and seductive image and straightforwardly threw Hong Yan's clothes to the side. Then, he walked over and urged, let's hurry up and do dual cultivation. If we don't start now, Song Qingshu and Hong San will very likely become suspicious. Xia Fei also nodded and echoed, yes, you've been here for so long, but the seclusion site's protective measures have not been activated. If they find it strange and come in to investigate, it will be troublesome. Although Hong Zhu had never done dual cultivation before, he had heard of how it should be done. So, regardless of whether Hong Yan agreed or not, he grabbed her arm and pulled her up. Chapter 1231. Xia Fei also walked over and pulled Hong Yan over to Xiao Chen's side. She arranged for Hong Zhu and Hong Yan to sit on either side of Xiao Chen, then pulled the somewhat dissatisfied Shen Jingxian over as well. The three of them sat in a circle. Although Shen Jingxian did not quite agree with Hong Zhu and Xia Fei's approach, it was not appropriate for her to raise any objections at the moment. She had no choice but to helplessly take off her clothes with Xia Fei and place their hands together. Shen Jingxian placed her left hand on Hong Yan's right palm, while her right hand was placed on Xia Fei's. Hong Zhu was on Xia Fei's side, while Xiao Chen was on Hong Zhu's side. Let's begin. Although Xiao Chen did not open his eyes, his divine sense and mental energy were able to clearly perceive the movements of the people inside the barrier. Seeing that Hong Zhu and Xia Fei were so determined, Xiao Chen did not forcibly stop them. After all, he only wanted to cooperate with them in their dual cultivation and would not do anything outrageous. Seeing that everyone was already seated, Xiao Chen quickly took off his clothes and placed one hand on Hong Zhu's palm while extending the other. However, even after waiting for a long time, he still did not feel Hong Yan's hand reaching out to him. As such, it was not appropriate for him to open his eyes and could only helplessly frown. Hong Zhu had naturally also noticed this situation. Seeing that Hong Yan was still clutching her chest with her hands, as if she had been frightened and refused to let go, Hong Zhu impatiently said, "Hong Yan, if you really don't want to cultivate, then go ahead and cover it up. When Song Qingshu and the others arrive, I'll ask Xiao Chen to remove the barrier and let them see as much as they want. You can decide for yourself." Recalling that scene, Hong Yan pursed her lips and nearly burst into tears again, but she managed to restrain herself with great difficulty. After looking around, Hong Yan saw that besides Xiao Chen, who still had his eyes closed, Hong Zhu and Xia Fei were staring at her coldly, while Shen Jingxian was shaking her head in sympathy and helplessness. She gritted her teeth and struggled fiercely in her heart for a while, but finally made up her mind. She tremblingly stretched out her hand and placed it on Xiao Chen's palm. When Xiao Chen sensed that the palms of the 5 people had touched each other, he said, "All right, you should first get rid of the distracting thoughts in your minds. Once you've calmed down, you can begin to circulate your mental cultivation technique." The others quickly entered a state of mind. However, Xiao Chen could sense that Hong Yan's thoughts were still not very calm, so her mental cultivation method was not circulating smoothly. Her cultivation was also somewhat sluggish, so he stealthily channeled a sliver of essence into her body without batting an eyelid, helping her calm down the uneasy emotions in her heart. After a while, Hong Yan gradually calmed down. Moreover, the speed at which she circulated her mental cultivation method became faster and smoother. Even she herself was a little surprised. She had no idea why this was happening. However, she couldn't care so much at this time. She wholeheartedly immersed herself in cultivation. However, Xiao Chen didn't notice that the person he was supposed to cultivate with was currently staring straight at his body with her eyes wide open. Her face was flushed, and she would let out a low moan from time to time, as if she was extremely thirsty. "Second brother Song, I think something's wrong." Outside the seclusion area, third young master Hong waited for a long time, but he still didn't see the white light of the protective array. He couldn't help but say worriedly, "Hong Zhu and Hong Yan have been in there for so long, why haven't they started cultivating yet? Don't tell me that brat called. Xiao Chen wants to play some tricks. Humph. I don't think he would dare to do that, unless he doesn't want to live anymore." Song Qingshu had just snorted when he saw a faint white light gradually illuminate the seclusion area. Third young master Hong was overjoyed. He pointed at the white light and exclaimed happily, "It's lit up, it's lit up." "Second brother Song, you're right. I was worrying too much. This Xiao Chen is still reliable." However, Song Qingshu didn't look happy at all. Instead, he frowned and pondered for a while, then said coldly, "After Hong Zhu and Hong Yan successfully break through to the supremacy realm, we must first find out what method that kid used to help them break through successfully. Once we know the inside story, we'll find a chance to get rid of him. This kind of person is too big of a threat to our cultivation sects." It can't be, right? Third young master Hong was shocked at first. Then, he pinched his chin and pondered for a while. He shook his head disapprovingly and said, "Even if you want to get rid of Xiao Chen, I don't think little Hong Zhu will agree. Moreover, since that kid can help others break through to the supremacy realm so easily, he must have something extraordinary about him. If we can convince him to work for us, it'll actually be pretty good. In fact, third young Master Hong valued Xiao Chen's ability, especially his ability to help others break through to the supremacy realm. It was an extremely rare ability. He was a rare talent. Although the supremacy realm was opened every year and there was an endless stream of people coming to challenge it, there weren't many people who could successfully break through. No, it should be said that there were very few people who could. The reason was very simple. There were very few secluded cultivation spots in the supremacy realm to begin with. Everyone would have to expend a lot of effort just to fight for them. Even if they managed to snatch one, the pressure from the supremacy realm's origin force would make them feel helpless. After enduring the pressure, it was still a problem whether they could comprehend the meaning of breaking through. Therefore, supremacies were still extremely rare in the martial arts world. In every sect, supremacies were the leaders. If they had Xiao Chen's help, the success rate of the disciples who entered the supremacy realm would be greatly increased. Wouldn't that greatly increase the strength of the immortal cultivation sect? When facing the ghost cultivation sect, they wouldn't have to be restrained anymore. Third young Master Hong, you're too naive. Song Qingshu poured a bucket of cold water on him mercilessly. With Xiao Chen's eccentric personality, he definitely wouldn't be willing to submit to others. Don't think that you can recruit him to our side. Besides, if the other sects in the martial arts world discover the secret, such as our sworn enemy, the ghost cultivation sect, will be in big trouble. In fact, Song Qingshu was also quite curious about Xiao Chen's ability. However, he felt that since this kid had already used this ability to help Hongzhu and the others break through, they should have learned it too. In that case, Xiao Chen wasn't important anymore. Well, according to what you said, it makes sense. Then let's wait for them to come out and act according to the circumstances. If it really doesn't work, we'll ask Xiao Chen to go back first and decide what to do after he returns home. Third young Master Hong nodded slightly and agreed with Song Qingshu. Although third young Master Hong cherished talents, compared to the safety of the immortal cultivation sect, the safety of the entire sect was naturally more important. If Xiao Chen couldn't be used by the immortal cultivation sect, then it was better not to leave him in front of others. Chapter 1232. Although the two people outside were whispering to each other and discussing countermeasures, Xiao Chen, who was in seclusion, had no idea what they were planning. This was because he had just successfully helped Hongzhu and Hong Yan break through to the martial honor stage. At the same time, he was surprised to discover that after 2 rounds of dual cultivation, his cultivation had actually reached the nascent soul stage. When he helped Shen Jingxian and Xia Fei break through, Xiao Chen had already broken through from the 7th level of the nascent soul stage to the 9th level of the nascent soul stage. That feeling was extremely wonderful. He did not expect that he would jump 2 levels in a row. Xiao Chen could even faintly touch the barrier of the next stage. Xiao Chen, I found that there is something wrong with you. As Xiao Chen was feeling the changes in his strength, Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said in his sea of consciousness. It can't be. Elder Heaven Ancestor, don't scare me. Is it because I have leveled up too fast that there is something abnormal in my body? After hearing what Elder Heaven Ancestor said, Xiao Chen's heart suddenly tightened. He hurriedly used Yuan Qi to look at his dantian and meridians. In the end, after a round of inspection, he did not find anything wrong. He suddenly felt a little puzzled. I am not too sure. But as far as I know, even with the dual cultivation method, it is impossible for a person to level up so many times in a short period of time. And you are now almost at the profound ascension stage. This kind of explosive growth is simply incredible. Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head and was so surprised that he could not close his mouth. So the next level is the profound ascension stage. Does that mean I can learn an even more powerful skill? Tell me quickly. Xiao Chen nodded and shrugged his shoulders. He did not feel that there was anything strange about Elder Heaven Ancestor's amazement. Anyway, his own cultivation speed had always been almost the same as riding a rocket. He had long been used to it. Well, let's wait until you really break through to the profound ascension stage. Your leveling speed is really too fast. I have to check the heavens seizing fortune battle art first. If I find any problems, I'll let you know later. The elder heaven ancestor then added, how strange. This kid's cultivation is almost catching up to mine. Isn't it just cultivating against the flow? How can he be so awesome? Hearing the elder heaven ancestor's mutterings, Xiaochen shook his head helplessly. It seemed that the elder heaven ancestor did not discover any problems, but was surprised because Xiaochen's cultivation speed was too fast, about to surpass the elder heaven ancestor's speed in the past. Elder Sky did not say anything else, so Xiaochen collected his thoughts. He did not immediately stop circulating his mental cultivation method. Instead, he continued to dual cultivate with the girls until all four of them had consolidated their martial supremacy cultivation base. Only then did he slowly exhale and stop cultivating. He closed his eyes and focused his mind. Feeling that the pressure around her gradually weakened, Hong Yan immediately let go of Xiao Chen's hand, fearing that he would open his eyes at any time. She quickly turned around, picked up her clothes and put them on. With her back facing Xiao Chen, Hong Yan secretly wiped away the tears on her face, and then stood there silently, not knowing what to say for a while. Although Xiao Chen did not open his eyes before and after the cultivation, Hong Yan's disgust for Xiao Chen still did not decrease. The idea that Xiao Chen was a lecher had always been deeply rooted in her mind. But now, this big lecher had helped her break through to the venerable realm and had become her benefactor. Hong Yan did not know how she should treat him. Hong Zhu did not hurry to put on his clothes, but instead stared at his hands, feeling the surging power in his body, his heart filled with joy. He had finally become a venerable expert. His long-cherished wish of many years had finally been fulfilled. Next, he would find a chance to escape from the Hong family, then hide from grandfather patriarch's eyes and ears, quietly live in seclusion in the secular world, and live a carefree life. Little brother Xiao Chen, thank you so much for your help this time. I don't know how to thank you. How about big sister here dedicates my life to you? In any case, you've always been fantasizing about me, so how about I stay by your side from now on and serve you well? Hong Zhu's eyes turned, and she moved closer to Xiao Chen, speaking in a seductive voice. Hong Zhu really did not make such a suggestion because she wanted to thank Xiao Chen. She was thinking that after she escaped from the Hong family, if she could make use of Xiao Chen's connections in the secular world, she might be able to find a good place to hide. In any case, this kid was very clever and had many tricks up his sleeves. He would definitely be able to help her. Oh, there's no need for that. You should put on your clothes first. Xiao Chen sensed someone approaching him, and smelled the fragrance of a woman's body. His heart moved slightly, and he subconsciously stepped back. Are you for real? You wouldn't dislike me, would you? Hong Zhu was startled, and immediately put on a heartbroken expression. She clasped her heart and said, back then, you and I were so lovey-dovey, so tender and sweet. If I couldn't see you for even a day, I would think of you day and night. Now, it's only been a year, and you're actually saying that I'm old and withered. Stop, 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 stop messing around. When did we become lovey-dovey? Be careful, or I'll sue you for slander. Xiao Chen's head was about to explode. Goddess Shen was still listening on the side, so he could not let others misunderstand. Without waiting for Hong Zhu to speak again, Xiao Chen helplessly spread out his hands and said, all right, Hong Zhu, don't think too much about it. This is just a small matter, so you don't need to be too touched. Just treat it as me repaying you for taking Shen Jingxian to cultivate and taking good care of her this year. It was not that Xiao Chen wanted to play the part of a gentleman, but he had never felt particularly strongly about Hong Zhu, and only saw her as a friend. Besides, if this invincible little demoness really got together with him, wouldn't she eat him up? He wouldn't be able to bear it. Aya, don't be in such a hurry to refuse. It's not too late to think about it first. Although Hong Zhu had been rejected, she did not take it to heart. She covered her mouth and giggled a few times, then picked up the clothes on the ground and put them on. Shen Jingxian was both angry and amused at this scene, and she shook her head. Fortunately, she had been with Hong Zhu for a long time, so she already understood her temperament. Otherwise, if it was her in the past, she might really have misunderstood. After Hong Zhu finished putting on her clothes, she turned around and saw that Hong Yan was still silently standing to the side. Her face immediately sank, and she coldly said, "Hong Yan, Xiaochen spent so much effort to help us break through to the martial honor realm, but you didn't even say a word of thanks. You're really shameless." Thank you, Xiaochen." Hong Yan trembled and stammered, but her tone did not sound sincere at all. Instead, there was a trace of resentment. Moreover, her back was still facing Xiaochen, and she did not turn around. Chapter 1233. It's fine, don't listen to your sister's nonsense. It's just a slight effort, it didn't take much effort. Xiaochen waved his hand. When he sensed that Hong Zhu had already put on his clothes, he opened his eyes and indifferently said, "All right, since you've all consolidated your cultivation, my task is complete. Let's go out now." Before Xiaochen could finish speaking, he suddenly felt someone hugging him tightly from behind. Their soft and warm skin pressed against each other. It was as if he could feel the blood pulsing under that layer of skin. It was lively and full of life. Before Xiaochen could react, an enchanting voice resounded in his ears, "Great White Fox, don't be in such a hurry to go out. Why don't we take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have some fun and enjoy the pleasures between a man and a woman so that we don't waste this beautiful scenery? What do you think?" Xiaochen didn't need to turn his head to know from the voice that the person behind him was undoubtedly Xia Fei. He closed his eyes again, trying his best to ignore the rich fragrance of a woman and the soft feeling of her delicate body pressed against his. He calmly said, "Xia Fei, do you know what you're saying?" When he was helping Hong Zhu and Hong Yan make breakthroughs, Xiaochen had already noticed that Xia Fei, who was sitting across from him, was a little absent-minded. Instead of consolidating her cultivation, her mind was filled with all sorts of nonsense. Fortunately, Xia Fei had already broken through to the supremacy realm, so she wouldn't be in any danger. Under the influence of others, she didn't suffer any cultivation deviation. Xiaochen had thought that everything would be fine after she finished her cultivation, so he didn't expect her to do something even more exaggerated. Shen Jingxian and Hong Zhu were a little dumbfounded when they saw Xia Fei leaning against Xiaochen, not knowing how to react. Even Hong Yan, who had her back to Xiaochen, turned her head slightly to see what was going on. "Io, Great White Fox, don't be so cold to me." Xia Fei pouted and hugged Xiaochen even tighter as she muttered, "I've already come to you on my own accord, can't you at least comfort me? Besides, you won't lose out in this kind of thing, so what's the big deal?" Xia Fei's eyes were misty as she leaned on Xiaochen's broad and strong back. Feeling the strong masculine scent on his body, she became even more mesmerized. She couldn't help but stretch out her hand and continuously caress his pectoral muscles. Furthermore, her hand was gradually moving downwards. Xiaochen's body stiffened. He did not dare to pull concubine Xia down, nor did he dare to respond. His relationship with concubine Xia had never been close. Today, when she suddenly said that she wanted to serve him with Shen Jingxian, Xiaochen was already a little surprised. Now that this had happened, he really did not know what to do. In desperation, he could only look at the other women for help. "Consort Xia, how could you do this? Even if you like Xiaochen, you can't do such a thing in front of Hong Zhu and Hong Yan. This is wrong. Hurry up and stop." When Shen Jingxian felt Xiaochen's gaze, she shuddered and immediately shouted to stop him. Although she was not averse to such matters between men and women, it should also be done on different occasions. She wanted to be with Xiaochen in front of unrelated people. Wasn't that just giving them a free show? "That's right, senior sister Xiao Fei. You, don't act recklessly." Hong Zhu was also startled. Looking at concubine Xia's appearance, he suddenly thought of something and frowned. "It's over, concubine Xia's illness is acting up." "Acting up? What illness?" "Hong Zhu, hurry up and explain." how can we save her? If it goes on like this. Shen Jingxian was taken aback. She immediately pulled Hongzhu and asked. Originally, Shen Jingxian was a little dissatisfied with concubine Xie's desire, but now that she knew that concubine Xie's illness was acting up, all that was left in her heart was anxiety and worry. All she could think of was how to cure concubine Xie. This was the innate kindness of Shen Jingxian. Hongzhu wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing that concubine Xie's actions were becoming more and more intense, he could only look at Xiao Chen and say with some embarrassment, Xiao Chen, you, quickly think of a way. When senior sister Xiao Fei first started cultivating the art of charm, she accidentally fell into cultivation deviation, so from time to time, she would have physiological needs. Unless she can do it herself in time, the consequences will be unimaginable. What the hell, isn't this clearly a trap? Why didn't you say so earlier? Xiao Chen finally understood and immediately got up, quickly put on his clothes and pulled concubine Xia up from behind him. At this time, concubine Xia's skin was emitting waves of red, her eyes were blurred, and her expression was hot and restless. Her breath was short and fragrant, and it was obvious that she was about to fall into cultivation deviation. Seeing that the situation was far from good, Xiao Chen immediately grabbed concubine Xia's wrist and infused his yuan qi into her body, temporarily suppressing her restless desires. After a while, concubine Xia gradually calmed down and no longer pestered Xiao Chen for comfort. Instead, she slowly fell into a deep slumber, the red blush on her body slowly receding and her breathing becoming calmer. Only then did Xiao Chen breathe a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen, how is concubine Xie? Shen Jingxian asked nervously from the side. Seeing concubine Xie's unconscious appearance, Shen Jingxian felt a little guilty and inwardly blamed herself for wrongly blaming concubine Xie. However, she really hadn't expected that cultivating the art of charm would lead to cultivation deviation. Shen Jingxian inwardly reminded herself that she would have to be more careful when cultivating in the future, lest she end up like concubine Xie and make a fool of herself in public. She's fine for the time being, but I'm only treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Xiao Chen shook his head as he used his yuan qi to examine concubine Xie's meridians and dantian. Why? Sister concubine Xie is so pitiful, can't you cure her directly? Shen Jingxian worriedly looked at concubine Xie and couldn't help but ask. And, there's still an urge in her body, which is what we call a heart demon. I can't remove it, and it could erupt at any time. Xiao Chen frowned and turned to Hongzhu. Little Hongzhu, let me ask you, what is the matter with the art of charm that you cultivate? Will a heart demon appear as long as you cultivate? You and Shen Jingxian wouldn't also erupt, right? You can rest assured, Jingxian and I have never encountered any accidents while cultivating the art of charm, so it won't end up like senior sister Xiaofei. Hongzhu rarely teased Xiao Chen, but instead let out a faint sigh. However, what made Hongzhu feel a little gratified was that Xiao Chen had actually taken the initiative to show concern for his condition. This was something that he had never expected, and he had originally thought that Xiao Chen wasn't interested in him. Shen Jingxian also felt that Xiao Chen cared for her, and her heart was moved and warm. She subconsciously stretched out her hand and gently held Xiao Chen's hand. Chapter 1234. Xiao Chen smiled faintly at Shen Jingxian, patted the back of her hand, and asked, how did consort Xie's cultivation go berserk the first time? What exactly happened at that time? Hongzhu lowered his head and thought for a moment. He found it difficult to speak about consort Xie's situation and was momentarily at a loss for words. Shen Jingxian and Xiao Chen's fingers were intertwined as they stared at Hongzhu. She also wanted to know what exactly happened to consort Xie, so she did not say anything and quietly listened. After a moment of thought, Hongzhu took a deep breath, gnashed his teeth, and said, back then, when consort Xie was still in her budding years, she fell in love with a man from another sect, but that man had no interest in consort Xie at all. If an ordinary person had no interest in her, they would have directly rejected her, but that man actually took advantage of consort Xie's feelings and hooked up with a senior sister from my sect. Damn it. How could he do that? This is too evil. Shen Jingxian could not help covering her mouth and exclaiming. Because of this, after senior sister Xiao Fei learned the truth, she began to abandon herself to despair, leaving behind a knot in her heart. At this point, Hongzhu reached out to smooth Consort Xie's beautiful hair and continued. Later on, during one of her cultivation sessions, she was unable to overcome this inner demon and nearly went berserk. Fortunately, her sect master discovered it in time and saved her. Xiao Qin stared at Consort Xie's unconscious face and already knew the outcome of this matter. Consort Xie must have been unable to resist her inner demon, causing her to become like this and become somewhat impulsive. Thinking about how Consort Xie's husband, Wang Xiongzhuang, had never shared the same bed with her, so Consort Xie must have suffered a lot. Sure enough, Hongzhu continued, although sect master saved her life, he was unable to help her get rid of her inner demon, so senior sister Xiao Fei was left with a sequela. From time to time, she would want to do that with a man. Unless she could be satisfied and released, it was very likely that her body would explode and she would die. Humph. Another scumbag. Without waiting for Xiao Qin to speak, Hong Yan, who was standing far away, snorted first. She glanced at Xiao Qin, intentionally or unintentionally, and cursed angrily. I didn't expect Consort Xie to have such a complicated past. Xiao Qin naturally felt Hong Yan's hostility, but he didn't take it seriously. He just felt that it was unfair for the poor Xie Fei. After a thorough examination of Consort Xie's body, Xiao Qin confirmed that her vitals had stabilized and there were no abnormalities. He then used his primordial qi to wake her up. Before Consort Xie completely woke up, Xiao Qin specially instructed the other women, by the way, when Consort Xie wakes up later, don't mention anything about her past. Just pretend that no one knows about it. Shen Jingxian and the rest nodded in agreement. They looked at Xie Fei and their hearts were filled with sympathy for her. However, Hong Yan was a little surprised as she looked at Xiao Qin. She didn't expect this guy to be so meticulous. Could it be that he was pretending to be a lecher? Oh. Xiao Qin, Jingxian, Hongzhu. What happened? Why do I seem to have fallen asleep? After a while, Xie Fei let out a low moan and slowly opened her eyes. She swept her gaze over everyone present, a confused look on her face, as if she had no recollection of what had just happened. Hongzhu was stunned for a moment before he quickly explained, Senior Sister Xiao Fei, your old illness relapsed just now. You hugged Xiao Qin like a madman, kissed and touched him, and you almost pushed him down and started working. I actually did that? Xie Fei was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. Her face flushed red as she stammered, then what happened? After that. Hongzhu chuckled as he glanced at Xiao Qin. He then replied unhurriedly, after that, it was fortunate that Xiao Qin was decent enough to stop you in time. He even treated you. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the two of you would have done some indecent things right there in front of everyone. Xie Fei hurriedly turned to look at Xiao Qin and said apologetically, Xiao Qin, I'm really sorry, I've let you witness such a laughable scene. This is already an old illness of mine. Previously, when I was cultivating the charm technique, my mind was restless and I ended up suffering from cultivation deviation. I nearly lost my life and even ended up with this chronic illness. I'm really sorry. According to Hongzhu, I should be fine now, right? It's fine. Hongzhu has already told me about your situation, so I helped you treat it. Xiao Qin helped Xie Fei up and gave a simple answer. After Xie Fei stood up, Xiao Qin let go of her hand. After all, the two of them were not officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Xiao Qin didn't want to be too intimate with her as he felt a little awkward in his heart. After Xiao Qin let go of her hand, Xie Fei blankly grasped at the air for a moment before letting go, feeling a little disappointed. Xiao Qin didn't notice this scene and indifferently continued, as for your illness, I haven't completely cured it yet. I've only temporarily suppressed it. After all, this is your heart demon. As the saying goes, a heart disease needs medicine to cure it. You'll have to slowly adjust yourself in the future. Sooner or later, you'll be able to recover. Oh, then thank you. Xia Fei put away her disappointed mood and nodded in agreement. Xia Fei also understood that Xiao Chen was deliberately keeping a distance from her. Although she was a little depressed, she had no intention of giving up. It was said that a woman chasing a man was separated by a thin layer of yarn. Xia Fei firmly believed that Xiao Chen would accept her sooner or later. You're welcome. It's nothing. Xiao Chen looked up at the sky and said with a smile, well, it's almost time. Let's go out and meet the two people first. I don't want them to get impatient waiting outside and start grumbling. After that, Xiao Chen removed the barrier around them and removed the camouflage. He held Shen Jingxuan's hand and strode out of the seclusion site. Hong Yan followed behind Xiao Chen and Shen Jingxian in confusion. She stared at Xiao Chen's calm back in confusion. She felt that this so-called lecher was becoming more and more difficult to understand. When Xia Fei was acting up, this guy actually didn't take advantage of her. Could it be that he was really unmoved by Xia Fei's temptation? No. It must be because there were too many people present at the time. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, Xiao Chen didn't dare to act too presumptuously, so he pretended to be a good person to confuse others. That Shen Jingxian must have been tricked by him in this way. This person is really too bad. Hongzhu and Xia Fei walked at the very back. The two women tacitly looked at each other, their eyes seemingly hiding a very deep meaning. Seeing that Xiao Chen had walked far away, Hongzhu said in a low voice, Senior Sister Xiao Chen, your acting skills are quite good. You clearly remember what you did, yet you deliberately pretended to have amnesia. Even Xiao Chen was tricked by you. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Chapter 1235. Little Hongzhu, you even dare to tease your senior sister? Xia Fei lightly knocked on Hongzhu's head and pouted. Io, don't hit me. If I hadn't helped you out, you might have been even more embarrassed. Hongzhu protested with a grin. Xia Fei smiled faintly as she stared at Xiao Chen's back with a gentle expression. Although he wasn't very imposing, he was still standing proudly and said, in fact, I really should thank you because I don't know how to explain that matter to Xiao Chen. Fortunately, you took the initiative to explain it to him, otherwise he would definitely think of me as a female sex fiend. Don't worry. Xiao Chen isn't the kind of narrow-minded person who can't distinguish right from wrong, and he won't dislike you because of this matter. I'm guessing that he will accept you sooner or later. You just have to wait to marry into the Xiao family, and accompany his wives. Hongzhu squinted his eyes and consoled. But... Xia Fei suddenly thought of something and frowned, hesitating to speak. What's wrong? Hongzhu asked in confusion when he saw Xia Fei's strange expression. It's nothing, it's just that you missed something just now. Xia Fei blushed and hesitated for a moment before whispering, actually, I've never done that with a man, ah? Hongzhu was taken aback. He focused his mind and thought for a moment before saying in a soft voice, I know that you and your senior brother didn't make love, but after you suffered cultivation deviation, you developed a mental barrier and went to the secular world, so I don't know what happened after that. Then, when you had an attack, what did you do? Cough cough, you just said that as long as I can release it, my heart demon will be alleviated. Although Xia Fei was a little embarrassed, she didn't hide anything from her closest junior sister and explained in a low voice, if you want to release it, you don't necessarily need a man, you can solve it yourself. Oh, so that's how it is. Hongzhu suddenly understood. No wonder Xia Fei had said that she had never been with a man even though she had clearly lost her virginity. It turned out that she was referring to himself. Thinking of this, Hongzhu patted the back of Xia Fei's hand and comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, I'll find a chance in the future to help you talk to Xiao Chen. I'll make sure he doesn't have a knot in his heart. Hee, it seems that you know Xiao Chen quite well. After revealing her most private secret, Xia Fei suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. She pulled Hongzhu's hand and teased him with a smile, how is it? Little Hongzhu, do you want to consider marrying Xiao Chen together with Big Sister? This way, we can stay together every day and go wherever we want to play. Sigh. Senior Marshal Sister Xiao Fei, you are too optimistic. The cultivation world's sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. At that time, we will all become the sacrificial offerings of our clans. Whether we can come back alive is still unknown. Let's wait until we are truly safe and sound. Although Hongzhu was somewhat tempted, he still sighed in the end. TSK, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. With your temper, you definitely won't willingly become a sacrificial offering. I'm guessing that you've already thought of a way to escape, right? Xia Fei took a deep look at Hongzhu. She knew this junior martial sister of hers quite well after spending so many years together. Hongzhu chuckled and whispered, I can hide it from others, but I can't escape your eyes. In fact, I want to take advantage of the fact that before the sacrificial ceremony begins, just as he was about to reveal his entire plan, Hongzhu suddenly saw Song Qingshu walking towards them from not far away. He hurriedly stopped himself and gave Xia Fei a meaningful look, whispering, forget it, I'll find a chance to discuss it with you later. For now, we should first deal with this silly boy from the Song family. Xia Fei nodded slightly. She could more or less guess what Hongzhu planned to do next. It was nothing more than finding a place to hide and try not to be found by the Hong family as much as possible. Once the storm of the sacrificial ceremony was over, they could then consider what to do next. However, Xia Fei felt that although Hongzhu's plan was good, the Hong family was a member of the immortal cultivation sect and had eyes all over Huaxia. It would not be that easy for her to hide. Hongzhu, Xia Fei, are the two of you all right? Song Qingshu walked up to them and asked with a concerned look on his face. Song Qingshu finally felt a lot more at ease when he sensed the aura of a martial supremacy coming from Hongzhu's body. After all, it had been too long since Hongzhu and Hong Yan had made their breakthroughs, so he was worried that something might have happened to them. Of course we're fine. Do you want something to happen to us? Do you even know how to talk? Hongzhu rolled his eyes and grumbled with a pout. No, that's not what I meant. Although Song Qingshu was usually very arrogant, he was completely helpless in front of the little she-devil, Hongzhu. He hurriedly and carefully explained, I saw that Hong Yan seemed to be a little absent-minded when she came out. Third young Master Hong asked her a few questions, but she didn't answer them. That's why I specifically came to find you to understand more about the situation. Hong Yan usually has this kind of muddle-headed personality. What's so strange about that? Just ignore her. Hongzhu shrugged and glared at Hong Yan from afar, secretly warning her not to say anything that she should not say. I see. Fortunately, all of you have advanced to the martial supremacy realm. This trip to the mystery realm was not in vain. Song Qingshu nodded and did not think too much about it. Hongzhu could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Song Qingshu. He looked past him and said to Xiao Chen, little brother Xiao Chen, do you have any other matters to attend to? If not, why don't you come with us to the Hong residence for a few days? Let big sister treat you well. I believe you have a lot to talk about with your goddess Shen, right? Xiao Chen pondered for a moment before he said, nothing important, but, before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, Song Qingshu suddenly had a brainwave. He suddenly remembered what he and third young Master Hong were discussing outside, so he hurriedly said, Hongzhu is right. Since little brother Xiao has helped us so much, we should also properly thank you. Moreover, we might need your help in the future. We hope that little brother Xiao can do us the honor and come to the Hong residence and Song residence for a chat. Who's your brother? Don't randomly call people relatives over there. Xiao Chen did not hide his disdain for Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu had been given the cold shoulder. He wanted to flare up, but Hongzhu was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. He could only resentfully turn his head and pretend that he had not heard anything. Xiao Chen did not object to going to the Hong residence as a guest. However, even if he wanted to go, he had to first pick up Jia Muzhen, Qing Menjing, and the others. Chapter 1236. However, Xiao Chen had another question, so he turned to Hong Zhu and asked, "That's right, little Hong Zhu, I heard you mention something about a sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. What is that?" When Xia Fei and Hong Zhu heard Xiao Chen's question, they both stared blankly for a moment. Xia Fei's face, which had already returned to normal, suddenly turned red again, and she subconsciously took a step back. He heard it. When she and Hong Zhu were whispering about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world, he had actually heard it. This meant that the little secret that she had told Hong Zhu before had also been heard by Xiao Chen without missing a single word. Xia Fei's first reaction was to feel shy, but after she took a step back, she came to her senses. What was she feeling shy about? She had originally wanted to tell him these words, but now, Hong Zhu didn't need to find an opportunity to repeat them. Hong Zhu was in a daze because she suddenly remembered that Shen Jingxian was also going to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. For a moment, she didn't know how to explain it to Xiao Chen, so she could only stammer and vaguely say, "It's nothing, it's just a ceremony to open the cultivation world." Hong Zhu didn't dare to tell the truth to Xiao Chen, because she knew this guy's temperament very well. If he knew the ins and outs of this matter, then he would definitely not let Shen Jingxian take the risk. It was very likely that he would even stop Lu Shuangshuang and Kerlin. If that happened, he would forcibly stop the sacrificial ceremony. In this way, Xiao Chen would inevitably offend those people from the cultivation sects, which would cause him a lot of trouble. But if she didn't explain it in detail, Xiao Chen was not a fool and would certainly ask for the details. When that time came, how could she cover up this lie? Roar! Just as Hong Zhu was hesitating, gusts of cold winds suddenly began to blow around his seclusion area, and a deafening roar came from the nearby forest, as if it was coming from some terrifying and ferocious beast. Everyone, who had their own thoughts, immediately became alert and looked in the direction of the roar. They heard the rustling of leaves, and not long after, a pair of green things appeared in the depths of the forest. They kept moving toward them, and they seemed to be moving very fast. They were like two will-o'-the-wisps that were getting bigger and bigger, and they were particularly eye-catching in the dark forest. Xiao Chen, what is that? Shen Jingxian was scared out of her wits. She grabbed Xiao Chen's hand tightly and unconsciously took a step back, hiding behind Xiao Chen. "I think it should be a wandering beast, and it's quite strong." Xiao Chen's voice was a little solemn. He took a step forward and blocked Shen Jingxuan's petite body. Even Xiao Chen found the roar a little ear-piercing. Therefore, he immediately determined that the beast was not weak, and it was at least on equal footing with him. But shouldn't the strength of all living beings be suppressed in the venerable secret realm? Why could this beast release its full strength? Could it be that there was something special about it? The rest of them also looked a little pale. A few girls took small steps back, while Song Qingshu and third young master Hong stared at the forest, extremely nervous and alert. Song Qingshu and third young master Hong could clearly feel that the thing running in the forest should be stronger than them. Swoosh! Just as everyone was feeling anxious and guessing, they saw a snow-white beast suddenly rushing out of the forest. Xiao Chen looked over and saw that the beast had a lion's face, slender limbs covered in thick white fur, a thick and long tail hanging on the ground, and a pair of eyes that were like two copper bells, glowing with a faint green light. It stared at Xiao Chen and the others, looking extremely terrifying. "What the hell is this? What the hell is this?" Xiao Chen frowned. He felt a little helpless as he looked at the beast that was much taller than him and had never seen before. Roar! Before anyone could react, the white beast roared angrily and suddenly revealed the powerful aura of a level 7 honored realm. Then, it raised its front hooves and smashed them heavily on the ground. With a muffled dong sound, a shockwave visible to the naked eye spread rapidly along the ground with the gigantic beast at the center, attacking Xiao Chen and the others. "Everyone, be careful." Xiao Chen immediately shouted a warning. He grabbed Shen Jingxian, who was behind him, tightly. Then, he felt the ground beneath his feet shake, as if he had encountered a strong earthquake. It felt like the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Fortunately, Xiao Chen was already an expert at the perfected original infant stage, and he was supporting Shen Jingxian, so the two of them were not affected. Although they swayed left and right, they still stood firm in the end. However, the others were not so lucky. They were all waving their arms and legs, screaming in fear, and fell to the ground one after another. It was a rather embarrassing scene. As for the white beast, it did not move, and its pair of green eyes swept across everyone present. In Xiao Chen's opinion, it was as if it had a mind of its own, and by observing everyone, it was sifting through something. Before everyone could stand up, the white beast exhaled a cloud of white gas from its nose and suddenly locked onto Hong Zhu and Hong Yan as its targets, and rushed toward them. "Bastard, you're courting death." Song Qingshu was shocked, and she was the first to jump up. Although she knew that the white beast was stronger than her, she did not hesitate to activate her mental cultivation method, and displayed the cultivation of a level 5 martial honor. She swung her palm at the beast with all her might. Seeing this, third young Master Hong did not dare to be negligent. After all, he knew that Song Qingshu might not be able to kill the white beast by herself. Therefore, he also flew over and punched it hard. Bang! As third young Master Hong was closer to the white beast, his punch arrived first and landed on the beast's head first. However, it did not affect the white beast at all. Instead, he howled, feeling that the bones in his fingers were about to break. On the other side, Song Qingshu's palm wind arrived and slammed heavily on the giant beast's body. However, the result was not much different from third young Master Hong's. It was like hitting cotton, and the giant white beast did not stop at all. The harassment of the two ants not only failed to stop the white beast, but also angered it. The white beast suddenly shook its head, and third young Master Hong, who was caught off guard, was sent flying and fell heavily on the ground not far away. Blood immediately flowed out of his nose and mouth, and he fainted without a sound. Third young Master Hong. Song Qingshu was shocked, and she quickly ran toward third young Master Hong. However, she had only taken a few steps when she suddenly heard an ear-piercing sound behind her. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.